Hi all, my name is Cortney Lopez. My topic on nonprofit turnover rates, I felt was very applicable as a fundraiser in San Antonio, Texas. I thought this process would help me not only in my for my class, but also for my job and be able to give real-time input to other executive leaders on things as important and highly important as turnover rates. The question, how do 501c3 nonprofit organizations address the fluctuating retention rates of staff in respect to job satisfaction? So initially I thought that hierarchy communication, compensation, or unfair compensation or pay wages and career growth opportunities or the lack thereof would be beneficial to look into, but all of that I learned through literature review kind of surmises into job satisfaction. So we'll go through the history of nonprofits quickly, background of the nonprofit problems in respect to my question, some research and literature, implications or recommendations, and then a recap of the main points. So the first nonprofit that was kind of coined the term nonprofit organization was the Peabody Foundation around the 1860s, although very invested in caring individuals and organizations have existed through the beginning of time. The 1860s is when kind of the first coin of a nonprofit was established. In 1913, the United States government instituted the Revenue Act, which allowed agencies to be exempt from taxation if they identified themselves as such. And so that, as you can imagine, incentivized quite a few organizations to claim the charitable organization status. And then 1954, the IRS instituted the modern day 501c3 tax code. And so from then to now in 2024, there are 1.9 million registered nonprofit organizations, which means millions of NPO, nonprofit organization employees in the workforce. A bit about some background. So there are 80,000 nonprofit organizations in Texas, with over 450 in the Texas Hill Country, which is where my area is that I fundraise. In terms of prioritizing funding that comes in, philanthropic organizations, foundations, giving agencies, essentially, they require usually no more than 18% of your operating budget go towards administrative costs. Usually, if an individual or employee is not on a grant, they are being floated under unrestricted or operating costs. And so that means that your programmatic expenses far have to outweigh your admin costs. And so bonuses, sometimes merit raises or increases, those all fall under admin costs unless you put them into your grant. And so when you're prioritizing uncertain funding as a leadership team, you're just naturally going to consider bonuses and raises as secondary. And while that does seem like that's the case, that negatively impacts the job satisfaction of many employees, and you risk a mass departure. Psychic income is a huge piece of nonprofit organization, kind of organizational baggage. It's been understood for decades that individuals who work in nonprofit, you're not going to make a ton of money, but you're doing good. You're contributing to society as a contributing member. But that's not paying the bills anymore. And we can no longer, as leadership teams, rely on psychic income or pro-social values, donated work to contribute into an employee's compensation package. Employee burnout and inequitable compensation were huge parts of the research that I found in turnover rates and job satisfaction of nonprofit organizations. The average nonprofit turnover rate in the country is 19%, while for-profit was only 12%. Mental stressors and work burden were a huge contributor to that. And in terms of millennial versus baby boomers, the average millennials stay at their job of, their place of employment 3 to 5 years, while baby boomers 10 plus years. The idea of, well, grass isn't always greener on the other side. I'm going to stick it here. I'm going to be rewarded for my loyalty. That's not happening anymore. And that idea is going away as millennials and Gen Z employees kind of enter the workforce. And companies that don't recognize that and POs that don't are going to lag behind. In terms of the quiet quitting and disengagement, we have bills to pay as an employee. We understand, we can't just leave, but that doesn't mean that we're going to continue to go above and beyond. So work output, workloads, volunteering for events and things, that's not happening anymore when job satisfaction is not being met. And then again, prioritizing the funding. If you're not prioritizing in your budget, to continue to reward your employees, you risk them leaving and not being honest about that conversation, which we'll talk about in just a minute. In terms of AI in the workplace, as a leadership team, it's incredibly beneficial to your bottom line, to your budget, to alleviate work for a fraction of the cost. But that does create, fear of job security, and it can create barriers for interpersonal communication between supervisors and supervisees who are not having the one-on-one conversations. You're removing like HR modules entirely from an agent entity that's going to AI. You then are again increasing risks for job dissatisfaction. And then gender dynamics is a huge part of nonprofit work. 75% of NPO employees identify as female, but only 22% of CEOs in nonprofit organizations are female. You can see that in the graphs I created. There are increased risks of sexual harassment in the workplace. If males are in power, and there's, the dynamics of that. And that's not just nonprofit, that's anywhere, everywhere. Women have to worry about retaliation in the workplace, and a fear of being rejected or isolated out if they do make an outcry of abuse. And then the other side of that is because nonprofits are so heavy in terms of their employee demographics for females, the feminization of NPO work, just like nursing, for example, that field, males are leaving or have left nonprofit work because they feel they're not respected in their gender identification. Implications for this, what does that mean? So a few suggestions and insights. Investing, instead of investing salaries, 30 employees at $10,000 each, equating to $300,000, if you give each employee $1,000 to invest into an HSA or contribute to their 401k, have mental health days become a part of your vacation sick package. It's not as much as benefits, raises or promotions, but you are contributing something. If you look at it through the social penetration theory, creating trainings and insights for your supervisors, teaching them appropriate language, how to open up, how to go through that social penetration theory, multi-layered onion theory, and reveal a little bit about themselves. Applicable, appropriate and approved language, but not ruling so much with an iron fist, and understanding that reciprocal discourse between two people doesn't mean that there has to be a power struggle. If your employee sees you as an individual who also gets tired, who also, is seeing the things that they're going above and beyond for, that is incredibly important in job satisfaction, to know that your supervisor is also a human being who has a personality and family. I think that that's important for leaders to understand. I think that increased encouragement from supervisors to go to HR. A lot of supervisors, leadership teams sometimes discourage quietly employees from making outcries or questions, comments, concerns. I think that only creates disinterest on the employee's part and breaks up communication entirely. ERGs, employee resource groups, are free for a nonprofit outside of maybe a small couple $100 budget to do events. That would be a wonderful way to increase supervisee communications with other leaders, with other supervisors outside of an employee's direct one, to maybe just to get a different, viewpoint on something, opinion. If you're doing what you need to do, you shouldn't be worried about your employee telling your department secrets or building relationships outside of their direct department. That should be encouraged, not discouraged. And finally, professional development investment. If, again, kind of going back to the investing into benefits, if you don't have $50,000 to give promotions and raises, but you have 10, and you can give every employee $500 to spend how they'd like in professional development, approved trainings, they have some autonomy over their professional development. And we hope that the employee will see, yes, I know that I didn't get a bonus or a raise, but we do have a little bit of money in the budget, and I appreciate that they're investing in me, whether I take it somewhere or whether I don't. They're giving me that tool. The leadership supervisor to supervisor team is opening up communication and saying, we hope that you'll stay with us and you'll use the skills that we're paying for to increase the agency. We understand that you're also a human being, and this is a great resume builder booster for you. overall, this paper gave me tools, articles, research, evidence-based data to go back to my organization and immediately apply it to supervisors and leadership team, directors who are coming in every day asking for a raise or for a bonus for this person, or this employee is threatening to leave, but they have all of this workload and I don't know how I'm going to do that. We don't have, $7,000 to meet them in the middle, to come up with ideas for mental health days, to come up with, contributing 2% to their 401k, giving them increased vacation, allowing them to accumulate that over their 120 hours, having them find $200, $300 trainings for professional development, or paying for a 2-night hotel stay. That's much more doable than $10,000, $5,000 for every employee. And so I truly believe that nonprofit organizations who have functioned in this psychic income space, they're going to have to adapt, because in today's society, we are always pushing others to self-advocate and create opportunities for themselves. And if we are shying away from the communication piece of it, we are discouraging open and honest communication. We are not that stoic as individuals, and the veil is not as thick as I think we hope. And so I believe if you get in front of it and say, we don't have the money for that, this is how the funding works, you're educating your employees, and you're showing that we want to increase retention. We don't want you to leave, but we don't have this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We have to raise every penny that we need to make an organization to keep the lights on. But being honest with your employees, I think, in creating that communication where they can come in and say, hey, I don't want to leave here, but I would like a little bit of investment into myself as an employee. You're going to catch more flies with your honey than with, your vinegar. And just discouraging those conversations, they're going to happen anyway, but at least having a supervisor that can have those meaningful conversations and relationships, I feel is more applicable and would overall reduce turnover rates and increase retention rates.